Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, Section 2, Item 2.01, this is the high school and middle school program of studies. Mrs. Brusalis.
We have an information item, and I'm going to turn this over to...
I'll get it kicked off, and then our high school and middle school administrators are here to talk through it as well. So, this on? This is a big night for our secondary program for sure, because it kicks off the scheduling process season for our students. So students currently in grades 6 through 11 will start to engage in this process with their teachers, with their families, with their counselors. So the process of approving the program of studies is, we're going to give you an overview tonight of some of the key changes. Most of the program of studies are consistent from year to year, but there are some key changes and improvements every year, and that's what we're going to highlight tonight. We're not asking for approval tonight, we're going to ask for approval on the 22nd at our next meeting. So we always start with this slide, and there's a lot of bullets there, but the concept is continuous improvement. So back in 2013, when we started making some modifications to our program of studies, we were looking for a resource for families, especially for families that are new to the high school and middle school experience. You know, what can they use to make good, informed decisions? And that started that cycle of change year after year. So you can see all the modifications that we've made, from everything from a graduation plan to a time management plan to help the kids and families think about that. But most importantly, it's selecting the right course for each child. And that's what the program of studies is all about. So the administrators tonight are going to talk, again, lift out those key changes, and then the actual document will be here for the board to review and then to vote on the 22nd. So in terms of making recommendations for change, again, there's some places will be, well, hey, I think we should do this, or let's consider this. Our changes to the program of studies are always very strategic. They're born out of things like our strategic plan and our in-depth program review processes. So you're going to see those highlighted in the presentation tonight. If there's a recommendation for a modification within a department, it came out of program review. You'll see that with course changes, modifications, maybe even deletions. So that, if you recall, that's a year-long study for each of those departments before we bring it forward and make some recommendations for changes to the program of studies. So I'm going to start with, I think Dr. Hernandez is going to kick us off, talk to you about the changes that are coming for the high school, and then Dr. Christophic is going to pick up for the middle school. Dr. H, the clicker's there, just a left-right clicker.
1 second to get my notes out. Overview. Okay. So good evening. My name is Frank Hernandez. I proudly serve as the high school principal at PR. I'm joined by two of our assistant principals who will speak this evening, Mrs. Tracy Kuchnicki and Mr. Jake Cawley. Our third assistant principal, Mr. Barlak, he's out sick. He asked to come anyway. We said stay away. We don't want to catch what you have, buddy. Before we begin, Mr. Morris, I just want to say thank you to you and the board for having the moment of silence for Jonathan. It's been a really tough few weeks for us, and your gestures mean a lot, so thank you very much for starting the meeting that way. What you see here is an overview of some of the changes that we are recommending for the program of studies for next year. At the bottom, highlighted in green, are two of the changes that we made last year that with some new board members, we thought it would be good to revisit them, to share those with you, because it kind of provides some direction as to some of the other things that we're looking at adjusting here. So our scheduling process and our waiver procedures we'll talk about tonight. What we've done there on pages 32 to 36, so you'll have that once you actually have the document to kind of review what we're referencing here. We've added a narrative to the scheduling process, so it's kind of a description of how we start, how we do things, how level changes are handled, and that type of stuff. We've also are recommending to you improvements in our waiver procedure. So students or families that are interested in taking a class that is higher or in some cases lower than what their teachers are recommending, and we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. tonight. The sub-bullet point there for that first one is what Dr. P was just talking about. When we have our parent scheduling night, and any time that we're in front of our students and our staff talking about scheduling, we've tried to brand this concept of choosing wisely. So we want to help you, the student, the family, the teacher in the case of making recommendations, choose wisely. We want the right class for the right student. There are some updates that are coming in engineering and technology, which is part of our in-depth program review. We'll touch on that tonight. We're going to propose and show you tonight what career pathways that department's looking at and thinking about. Not included tonight, but on pages 30 to 32, we've added a section on NCAA eligibility in the NCAA worksheet. Mrs. Straub has done a good job working with the administration this year to kind of update that section of our program of study. So if you're a student athlete thinking about playing Division I or Division II NCAA athletics, you have to go through what's called the NCAA clearinghouse. And what we've added there are some charts and some worksheets that will help guide students and be a user-friendly resource for our counselors and our families. You will learn tonight about some new opportunities in music, family consumer science, and some experiential learning opportunities. And then, again, like I said, the items there in green, we're going to actually start with those in a moment. Those are the updates that we've made to Act 158 and our social studies department. Before we begin there, just want to talk to the board very, very briefly, and we'd be happy to follow up in further detail with you if you have any questions. But we want to talk about Naviance. Naviance is a comprehensive grade 7 to 12, so any student that's on this campus here, college and career readiness platform. And what we do with Naviance is we use it to help students with what we call self-discovery. Each of the hyperlinks up there will take you to a YouTube promo that we've put together that kind of shares a little bit more information. But what Naviance does, it creates a complete electronic portfolio for our students. So our students would take self-discovery assessments to help them identify how their likes, their interests are aligned to potential colleges and careers. That's important for us to do because then you backwards map that to the scheduling process and you start to work with students and families to take courses that are interested and aligned to what they may be wanting to do with their post-secondary interest. Within Naviance, we also use assessments, like I said, to match their personalities and interests with potential careers. There's also this really cool feature that's called a post-secondary search tool. So whether that's Supermatch or College Compare, our student and our families using your Pine-Richland credentials are able to go into Naviance as your child gets closer and closer to graduation. They'll take a look at colleges and universities that they may be considering applying to. For instance, I think we shared this slide last year with the board. Mrs. Tarchik, I know you're familiar with the process there at Clemson. This is the Naviance page for Clemson University. And what you'll see there, and any student at Pine-Richland, any family can access this for any college or university across the country, you will see a by-year number of Pine-Richland students that have applied to Clemson, who's applied, how many students have applied, how many students have been accepted, and then the little XY axis over there is a sliding scale of GPA and SAT score. So it kind of gives a student a sense of, you know, if they find where they fall, if they know their GPA, which our students do, and once they get their SAT score, they can kind of see where they fit in with Clemson applicants. So those are real life, the blue dots, the red X's, the green check marks, real life Pine-Richland students over the last 3 or 4 years that have applied at Clemson. The green checks are the students that have got in. The red X's are the students that were denied admission. I'm not going to go into like early decision, early action, things like that, but it's really interesting for students to look at because if Clemson's something that a college that I'm interested in, but my GPA is only hovering around 3.0, we work with that student through Mrs. Whalen and their school counselor to help them make a good decision about college. It's also really interesting if you look at that, you can see that in not every circumstance did high GPA and high SAT score help you get in. There's some situations there where students got in with a lower GPA or a lower SAT score, and that's an educational opportunity for our students and families that speaks to how robust your college application must be with references and college visits and what they call the college interest score right now, the interest that you show to the college and university. Our college planning night, just putting a promo out there for that, is on Tuesday, January 30th. That's virtual. It's led by Mrs. Whalen. It's an excellent night every year. So if you or anybody in your neighborhood or in your community is in that kind of age range, we really encourage them to attend and hope that you would do the same. Okay, before I turn it over to Mrs. K, want to share this with the board as well. The graduation requirements that you're looking at here were put into place in 2014. So as a student narrows on possible college fields and things that they're thinking about doing after high school, they have to schedule classes that help them meet our graduation requirements. So 4 years of English, 3 years each in social studies, math, and science. The science 3 credits must include biology. Our students do have to take 1 additional flex credit in math, science, or social studies. Health and PE, which most of our students take in 9th grade. They do have to take 9 electives for a total of 24 credits. All students also have to demonstrate proficiency on Keystone exams, which falls under Act 158, and federal, state, and local requirements continues to guide our work for our high school students and families with graduation requirements. With that said, Mrs. K, would you come up and just talk about some of the supports that are available? Thank you.
Oh, terrific. Hi, everybody. These 2 graphics are not new to our program of studies. This is something that's been available to our students for some time. The time management planner and the graduation plan are really tools that support students and families, not only to work to balance and prioritize school time, but also personal well-being, extracurricular activities, and student work if they choose to participate in that. The 4-year graduation plan is something that each student creates with their counselor every year, and they revisit it to make sure that the student is set up for long-term success throughout high school. Act 158, this was signed into law in 2018. This affects last year's graduating class and beyond in 2023. This allows us to give students a more flexible option to meet the graduation requirement to show college, community, and career readiness. For our students at Pine-Richland, they take their first Keystone after they take one of their trigger courses, which would be any English 9, it would be Algebra 1, and Biology. They would take that Keystone exam in the spring of that year that they take it. If they don't reach proficiency, we provide supplemental supports and then allow them to retake the test 2 additional times prior to looking at one of these pathways. On the slide that you see in front of you, we had last year 87% reach proficiency on the Keystone exams with the traditional pathway. Again, our goal is 100% proficiency for all students, but we understand that all students can meet the pathway through graduation requirement through a different pathway. On the next slide, this is something that's available to you in our program of studies. This is something that the state provides. This is a document here. I can pass them out if you guys would prefer. This just gives you some additional guidance on the other pathways. So you have the traditional Keystone pathway, which would mean proficiency on all 3 exams. You have a composite pathway, which means you at least reach proficiency on one of the exams, no below basic scores, and the composite score is either 4,452 for a 3 score, or if you took a Keystone trigger course for biology or algebra during the year 1920, you were able to do a 2-score composite. On the back of this, you'll see the criteria for the other 3 pathways. The CTE concentrator pathway, that is focused more on our students that attend Beatty Career Center. If they reach a score on their NOCD exam showing that they're going to be able to pass during that pre-NOCD exam in the fall of their 2nd year at Beatty, they can show their evidence for Act 158 that way. We also have alternative assessment, and that could be an SAT, an ACT, ASVAB, PSAT score, or even a letter of a 4-year acceptance into a college. And then we have our evidence-based pathway, which would mean they would have to be able to represent 3 of the pieces of evidence, one from Section 1 and one from Section 2. One of those pieces of evidence could be a proficiency on a Keystone exam. It could also be a letter guaranteeing full-time employment or acceptance into a 2-year university. And I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Hernandez.
Mrs. Kay. What's really cool is if one of our students don't meet one of those first two pathways, is our team here of principals, of counselors, oftentimes in collaboration with Beatty's, special education teachers, and the instructional staff, really wrap their arms around a student and family and help them meet those proficiency measures that are outlined in our program of studies. So two things we want to highlight with social studies that the board approved last year that impact us moving forward. Social studies department did their in-depth program review in 2016. Two of the recommendations that we really latched onto last year are included on this slide and the next one. So for this slide, we had recommendations around promoting civic competence and engagement, civics and economics competencies integrated throughout the K-12 span. As the team started to do that work, one of the things that really stood out is that we felt we needed a standalone civics, government, and economics course where we could embed U.S. history in there, maybe landmark Supreme Court cases. We can embed world history and look at things like Hammurabi's Code and how that impacts present day. So we worked with the team last year, and we moved from the top box there, which was our previous social studies course sequence, to where we're currently at this year with the bottom box. So prior to this year, the course sequence for our social studies students, remember they need 3 years of social studies to graduate high school, was in 8th grade they took U.S. history, in 9th grade they took U.S. history, in 10th grade they went to world history, and then in 11th grade they went back to U.S. history. And you can see underneath there kind of like the eras and the time periods that those courses covered. And then 12th grade, because it's not a required class, they would be able to take an elective. Some would go on to like AP microeconomics. Others would go on to, excuse me, AP U.S. history. What we adjusted, and this impacts our current freshmen, is what you see below. Some U.S. history was shifted down through to the middle school, so they're still taking 8th grade U.S. history, that's the colonial era, through Reconstruction. Reconstruction is the period after the Civil War. Our 9th graders take U.S. history again, progressive era to the present day. We take world history in 10th grade, and for the current 9th grade cohort, once they become juniors, they'll be the first group that will go through and take civics, government, and economics. And again, that course will have embedded U.S. and world history in it. We feel really strongly about that sequence there, that it's the best way to educate our students to meet the goals in our social studies program in-depth program review. We also did some key work last year in social studies around Rec 5. And Rec 5 has to do with new elective courses that are in diverse areas of study. So prior to this year, the 12th grade courses that are listed on the left-hand side are the courses that our 12th graders could, if they wanted to, remember it's not required, take a U.S. history course. So you see the 3 AP classes up there, advanced placement, some semester courses up there as well. Working with our social studies department to try to identify courses that they thought would be valuable and meaningful to our students, and then pulling our current seniors, so last year's juniors, they find their interest in it. We're really proud to share with you that we not only kept those top 5 courses, but we added courses such as Honors Research and Global Studies, Honors Philosophy through Media. Those are semester courses, as are History through Music and Sports and Culture. If we had a little bit of extra time, I was going to have Mr. Slim come with me tonight and bring some of our cricket bats and things like that and show you some of the neat and cool things that students are doing. But those classes, I think we have about 90 so seniors taking those new electives this year, and they are having a blast with it. They're learning about things like sumo wrestling and different sports that we didn't even know existed in countries all around the world. So it's really good stuff for our kids, high interest, and we're looking to continue to expand that in future years. Real quick side note, both of those honors courses went through what's called an honors review, meaning that they had to show the merit to be considered a weighted honors course. So through assessments, through instructional techniques, through additional work, students that take those courses do get the advanced GPA credit that goes with it. So some things that we're proud of in social studies. We always take this moment to update the board and our community on how our Air Force Junior ROTC program is doing as well. So a couple things that we want to share here. Benefits for students to take JROTC far exceed if you're interested, just being a student that's interested in going to the military. There are so many valuable leadership lessons that are learned in this course. Students are able to compete in different competitions. They have camaraderie with their fellow classmates. They engage in extracurricular activities like our Drill and Raiders program. We have a community booster group dedicated to our Air Force Junior ROTC, and they're able to travel as far away as other countries in Europe. So there's a lot of great benefits for this program. You can see a little bit of a historic enrollment trend there. So in 2018, 2019, we had 101 students in the program. 18 of those were Mars. We have a crosstown agreement with Mars Area School District. Those students come here first period of the day and take JROTC here at our high school. And we had 83 PR students. For the current year, we're sitting at 80. 23 Mars students and 57 PR students. And this is the third year in a row that we're below the number 100. That number is really important, guys, because we had a unit evaluation completed this year that's done, I think it's supposed to be done once every other year, but we had it done this year for the first time in 3 years. In that evaluation, we had so many commended areas. Like our instructors got commended for their grooming and parents. They got commended for the awards that the program's winning. They got commended for parent input and student input. The only real concern that we have, and this is a nationwide thing, I can share with you the NA's experiencing it right now, Seneca Valley's experiencing it right now, Pine-Richland's experiencing it right now, is they marked us for what's called a viability concern. For JROTC, a school district has to have JROTC numbers that are either 10% of their student population, meaning if we had 800 students in our high school, we'd have to have 80 students in the program. Or if you're a school of 1,000 or more, you have to have 100 cadets. If you don't meet your viability concerns, they can actually take the program away from you. That's governed by Quantico. That's a national decision. The reason they do that is there are schools across the country that would like to add JROTC, and quite frankly, they can't because there's such significant staffing shortages within that department. So if we would take that chart and we would stretch it back to 2013, you would find that there were 38 students in JROTC here at our high school in 2011 or 2013. Yeah, 2011. There were 38 students. Years ago, Dr. Miller, Dr. P, and the board decided to develop the crosstown agreement with Mars. That helped us get our numbers up. However, there's still a lot of challenges that we're facing with JROTC to get that 100 viability number. You will be hearing about some of those things. We'll be bringing them to you in the future. You'll see in the program of studies, we have a showcase just for JROTC that we're going to pop and put in front of all of our students when we do scheduling meetings and talk about the benefits in a lot further detail. We're considering giving it, creating an opportunity for 8th graders to come over and take the class. And we're looking at some new electives. They call them LDRs, but they're technically electives, whether it's drones or cyber patriot or things like that that would boost interest in the program. So that is something that we're thinking heavily about. It's a program that has so much strong value. Even just community presence, you see the picture there on the right, being available and present in our community for those cadets is really, really important. Okay. Scheduling process, just kind of quickly talking through this one because it's encompassed in 2 slides. We schedule through a committee. We, through that committee, get input from our senior leadership team, our academic leadership council, our teachers, our counselors, our administrators, to pick courses that we think are appropriate for our students. Over the last few years, we're really proud to share with you that there's been increased focus on middle school to high school transition. So what that's looked like, I think next week, Dr. K, we're going over to the middle school to meet with the 8th grade teachers to talk about course recommendations and prerequisite criteria and things like that. We have our Principals Advisory Committee and our peer-to-peer students in a few weeks going to the middle school to talk to 8th graders about elective courses and what their experiences were with them. Our special education team does a lot of work to ensure continuity of services, just not for students that need services and extra support, but students that are gifted as well and that they need enrichment. It's pretty neat to see the hand scheduling that goes on for our special education students. For our students, and there's 183, I think, this year that have an IEP at this high school, I can tell you their schedule from homeroom through 9th period has basically been handcrafted by a team to try to get them as much support as possible. It's a time-intensive lift, but it's something that pays valuable dividends for them down the line. And if something's not going well for that student in October, that team gets back together and we adjust that accordingly. Orientation is a big hit every year. We do 2 sessions. We're also looking at adding a supplemental orientation for students that need more supports. The 2 charts that you see there are both included in the program of studies. The chart on the left is our timeline. So it kicks off January 22nd with your approval of the program of studies. If, and fingers crossed, when you approve, the very next day we send the program of studies and a scheduling letter to our students and our families, which outlines everything that's there. Our teachers make recommendations to students on courses the week of January 29th, and we're looking to add a waiver window this year that is going to do the heavy lifting of scheduling in the spring so that we're not making as many scheduling changes in the future and we get the right students in the right course. The chart on the right is also included in our program of studies. It currently exists as a course drop withdrawal, or the left-hand column of the chart on the right. The only recommended change there is that when a student drops a course, we want to move them from getting a W letter grade assignment to either a WP of passing or a WF of failing. We feel that that tells the story of how the student was doing in the course at the time that they dropped without disadvantaging the student, because oftentimes what happens is students do drop courses if they're not only failing but more frequently like a D or a C, and we felt that that's more beneficial for our students. Level changes are added this year. Previously, we've tried to fit all level change movement, meaning like I'm going from honors algebra 2 to algebra 2, honors chemistry to maybe an academic chemistry, under that course drop withdrawal procedure that you see on the left-hand column. The benefit of adding a level change procedure is that students aren't going to get stuck when they want to move a course or move a level. Currently, they have to wait to the second semester or the third 9 weeks. I can know in September that I want to move a level currently, however, I might be stuck there until the third week of January. So that's going to give us a lot more flexibility to work with individual students and families. The waiver process is a big improvement effort for us. What a waiver is, it's basically any time a parent or a student wants to take a course that doesn't align with the teacher's recommendation. So maybe I am recommended by my teacher for Algebra 2, but I want to be a finance major and I want to take honors Algebra 2. I would complete a waiver then to go into that class. Waivers cannot be used to avoid a prerequisite class, meaning to jump directly from over top of geometry to Algebra 2, but it can be used if I want to take a class that my teachers don't recommend me for. Currently, what exists at our high school, if I want a waiver, I complete a form in Sapphire. It documents what course I was recommended for, what course I want to take, and then it's automatically granted. That leads to a lot of schedule changes for us each year and a lot of heartache and headache sometimes for students, families, and teachers. We're recommending improvements to this process that's going to be heavily anchored in the top point there, number one. And that starts with our teachers meeting with their current students to review the courses that are up next in their sequence. So if I'm in 9th grade science, what are the possible courses for me in 10th grade science? The teacher would share with the students and the families what each course kind of involves in terms of the amount of work, the amount of math that's involved, et cetera, gathering student input to see how interested is a student in challenging themselves in science, and then sharing with their students and their families their justifications in for the recommended course. Once that happens and a waiver is requested, what we're going to do and what we'd like to be able to do is generate a list of all waiver requests through the school counseling office, and then review that list with the student's teacher, our department chairs, or our ALCs, our school counselors, and our administrators. And what we'll be doing is looking at things such as current class grade, previous grades and performance within the same content area, PVOS projections, so taking attendance and achievement data and making a projection on how well a student's going to do, student attendance and standardized test scores to determine if the waiver is granted. If the committee denies the waiver, there'll be an appeal process that's listed there at number 5, where the family would reach out to their alpha principal and a decision would be made. We feel that this would tighten things up for us so that we can further educate our students and families on the right course for the right student, while also offering us an opportunity to look at more comprehensive data before we make a decision of just automatically granting a waiver. Okay. Mr. Colley, can we talk about level change requests? Thank you.
So this slide talks more about what Dr. Hernandez had just gotten into about the level change request. So our current process, students waive into a class must wait until the start of the second semester to complete a level change. At that point, they then receive a W with the letter grade that they were earning at that time on their transcript without it being calculated into their GPA. And the grade earned from that class does not follow them and does not transfer into their new course. So on our proposed changes, all students are permitted to submit a level change on days 2 through 10 without penalty, or they must wait until the conclusion of the first 9 weeks or the second 9 weeks, at which point they would receive that WP or WF for withdraw, pass, or fail, and the grade earned from that original course would transfer with them to that new course, either representing the first 9 weeks grade or the first semester grade if that's at the end of the second 9 weeks. This slide has an example of our science pathways. So this is just, we have pathways for all of our departments here at Pine-Richland. And this shows how a student can wave into higher level classes for more academic rigor, but it sets a pathway and makes sure that a student can stay on that pathway to take all of their required classes during their 4 years. So if a student wants to waive, they can move if they take academic biology as a freshman, decide that they have an affinity for science and are successful in that class and want to waive into honors chemistry because there is a prerequisite of honors biology into honors chemistry, they can waive up into that higher level pathway. As another measure of effectiveness, we continue to track the number of add drop requests we receive each year. We want to see the data that changes we make and implement have a significant positive impact on decreasing the number of add drop requests. So that's why we want to do the work on educating the students, educating the families ahead of time. We continuously talk about spending time with students and families in February and March so that they're confident in their choices and then ready to go in August and have a smooth start to their school year. So additionally, we also track specific data regarding the add drop requests initiated on days 1 through 10, 11 through 20, and 21 plus, as well as compare the number of requests to the number of completions. This helps us further refine the scheduling process and ensure that the right students are in the right classes. Now we're getting into some of the specific changes that we're making within departments and adding courses and changing pathways. So this is in our music department. So under recommendation 3 and 4E from in-depth program review in our music department. So recommendation 3 talks about adding technology, implementing technology into our music department, and 4E is expanding the high school music electives to reach a larger portion of students at their level of interests and needs, specifically non-traditional music students. Our first column there shows what our current offerings are. The first column, we have currently offer music technology, which is a semester course, beginner piano, which is a semester course, and harmony theory, which is a semester course. I'll discuss orchestra after. So our proposed change is to change the name of music technology to introduction to music production, and then adding a music production course, which is a second sequencing. This allows us to further utilize the tools we already have. It'll be scheduled concurrently, so it won't require any changes to staffing. It'll allow us to further engage and retain our students within the music department. For piano, we are adding a second sequencing of piano 2, once again scheduled concurrently, so not making any changes to staffing, as we can have beginner piano and piano 2 students in the same classroom with teacher differentiation. Harmony and theory is currently a semester course that is offered annually with low numbers. And these students are typically students that have interests in exploring post-secondary music options. It's a very rigorous semester course. It's offered to 11th and 12th graders currently. The change that we're making for next year is to offer it to 10th graders, and purposely trying to track those 10th and 11th grade students into it so that in the 25-26 school year, we can replace that course with AP Music Theory, which is a full year course. As far as orchestra goes, we currently have 3 sections of orchestra offered here at the high school. These are all general orchestra sessions that are grades 9 through 12, as well as honors orchestra. The students can enroll in honors orchestra and fulfill some other academic rigor requirements to receive honors weighting, as well as with all of our other music ensembles. The proposed change is to add an audition-based group, advanced orchestra, and honors advanced orchestra to engage those higher level orchestra musicians at their level and continue to challenge them, as well as allowing for the development of musicians in the current orchestra courses at a level that is appropriate for them as well.
Thank you, Mr. Cawley. Okay, almost towards the end here. Engineering and Technology Education did their in-depth program review last year as well. The image that you see there is their new department's image. So you see the elements of engineering, architecture, video production, and manufacturing there. So they will be doing a lot of branding that image and sharing that out with students and families in the coming years. Rec 2 for them basically talks about providing flexibility and deeper exploration within career pathways. So in engineering and technology, for probably about the last decade plus, what's called Project Lead the Way courses have been kind of the thing that's been in. Project Lead the Way is a nonprofit organization that provides STEM curriculum to schools. Project Lead the Way really since COVID has started to fade away in most schools, and it's been fading away for a number of reasons. It's tough to staff due to rigid certification requirements. Students typically are not overly interested in the courses because they don't provide honors weight nor college credit. The department wants to go the route of providing career opportunities and career pathways for students, and then in future and coming years look at college and high school opportunities. So what you see there are two charts. You see a chart that shares architecture, engineering, video production, materials, and manufacturing. Those are the four pathways, career pathways that you'll see in our program of studies for engineering and technology. If I'm a student that goes maybe into the architecture pathway, what the program of studies will show you is that there's a sequence of courses that starts with Introduction to Technology and Engineering and ends with Advanced Architecture that students in that architecture pathway would take. And then there's the same pathway for the three other areas as well. What we've done and what we would like to continue to do is to design the courses within this department so that they can kind of be taken in an exploratory manner as well. So if I'm interested in architecture, I may also still take systems engineering that's part of the engineering pathway. I would learn a lot through that. I may still take the video production class that's here because if I'm going to be an architecture major, I need to be able to market and know how to represent the work that I'm doing. So that's some of the stuff that's coming in engineering and technology that you will see. Mrs. K?
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so Family and Consumer Science also did their in-depth program review study phase last year. And one of the recommendations that came out of it was looking at the curriculum and course offerings in grades 9 through 12 to find out if there were additional opportunities for students to gain skills. Through this recommendation, one of the proposed changes that we are asking, the contemporary living course, we would like to give it a new name for the upcoming school year called FCS Design Lab. The team does feel like it's more reflective of the learning activities, knowledge, and skills learned in the class. Within this class, it gives students a way to study various design methods, techniques, and skills using the FCS equipment, such as a commercial vinyl cutter, a heat press, CAD software, and tools used to create a variety of products. With the Design Lab, we would also like to offer Design Lab 2, which is an expansion of the skills learned in Design Lab 1. This would enable students to expand beyond that beginner level and give students more independent learning and self-directed projects, allowing them to take the initiative to explore their unique designs and interests. The next course that we would like to recommend adding in, and all of these courses would not affect staffing at the high school because they would be similar to music department. They would be scheduled concurrently with the current class offerings. Child Development 3 is something that we found through our in-depth program review research phase that there are a significant portion of high school students enrolled in our child development classes that aspire to pursue careers working with children further after high school. This course will provide students an opportunity interested in those professions for advanced career exploration and research opportunities. It'll cover advanced theories and research on human development, specifically recognizing the potential disruptive effects on prolonged exposure to adverse experience on healthy brain development and long-term impacts on health and behavior. It'll also help students understand the critical role of early experiences with child development, shaping the brain and emphasizing the need for a nurturing environment. Dr. Hernandez, do you want to take over for any questions?
Just real quick on that too. Those images there were designed by Pine-Richland students as part of that's now contemporary living, but just some examples of things our kids are creating.
Thank you.
Ms. Kay. Okay, so that concludes everything that we would like to share with you. We're super excited about these changes. You'll see them in our program of studies. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have now, or if you want to take some time to digest that and reach out, by all means, you can email and call as well. Mrs. Miller?
I am super excited about all those offerings in music. I was a music major, so I'm really excited about that. I had one question.
Sure.
You had the AP orchestra. Did you have any thought for AP band?
So we were recommending AP Music Theory is the course that we were looking at. We were adding a third, a varsity section of AP Orchestra, so an advanced tier. I don't know.
It's
the-
not AP, it's not AP,
Yeah.
just to, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not an
AP Music,
Advanced.
AP Music Theory is the advanced placement course, but these
Yes.
are just advanced levels of either band or, in this case, orchestra.
Orchestra.
Okay,
The
so they're
Music Theory
playing.
AP classes for 25,
yeah,
26.
it's not just theory.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
That's great. That's
you.
great.
Yep.
Yeah, we can pause there for any more high school-related questions because we're going to shift into the middle school.
Question, if I could get this to come on. When you looked over the data of like all the course changes, I guess I'm looking at slide like 21 or something here. Did you find any trends like in certain courses where you found more dropping
Yeah.
or switching of levels?
We did. So 12th grade is always going to have the highest number because the senior flex goes in. We schedule all of our 12th graders and then we go in and change them out to flex. Most of the changes that you see in 10th and 11th grade are students that had waived into an upper level science or math course, went in and either didn't do the summer work that was required or just realized that it wasn't for them. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to tighten the waiver process and also our process of just working with students and families to get them in the right course. Yep.
There was an offer for a hard copy of the pathway to graduation. I'll take you up on that later. Afterwards, you can give me a copy, please.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Yep.
I just
Okay.
had one question
Yeah.
about leveling.
Mhm.
Is it only going down, or can you level up as well?
Almost all the requests level up. Sometimes we will see a
Okay.
student or a family that wants to take a lower level course, just for the sake of balance, and they'll have all, like, 5 honors classes, 5 AP classes. But yeah,
Okay.
we see that rarely, but we do.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to shift to the middle school, and again, same thing, middle school has a program of studies, and they're going to highlight a couple of the changes that are happening at the middle school.
Hello, my name is Nicole Barizo. I'm the new assistant principal at Pine-Richland Middle School, and I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with the first slide.
You have the
Oh.
clicker there? Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so this slide is going to highlight our Tier 3 ELA changes, which is English Language Arts. It shows our commitment to the multi-tiered Systems of Support program, which is, the acronym is MTSS, which has 3 levels. So when you see this slide, you're going to see Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Just to give everyone some background, Tier 1 captures about 80% of our students, give or take. Tier 2 captures about 15% of our students, the students that might need just a little more support from their teachers. And then Tier 3 is about 5% of our population, the students that need the most support. So these changes were actually implemented this year. So what you see on the right is current, and we plan to continue with them. But just to show what we did to build out our MTSS program here, prior to this school year, if you were a 7th grade student coming to Pine-Richland Middle School taking ELA, which all of our students are, Tier 1 students are taking English and they're taking reading. Our Tier 2 kids, if you're a 7th grade student, are taking those same courses, and then they would get a little more support from their teachers, maybe during academic support time or during their core content time in a small group. And then Tier 3, which we're really focusing on here, they were taking 2 replacement courses. So instead of taking English, they were taking Step Up to Writing, and then instead of taking reading, they were taking language exclamation. 8th grade, that old programming mirrors 7th grade, except you might see the difference there between Tier 1 and Tier 2, but Tier 3, like I just explained, has those 2 replacement courses. So starting this year, in 7th grade, our 7th graders came in. Tier 1, they were doing English and reading. Tier 2, same idea, English and reading, getting a little extra support through academic support and small group time, maybe in their core content area. And then Tier 3, they're taking one replacement course now. So if I'm a Tier 3 student, I'm going to be taking reading with all my Tier 1 and Tier 2 peers, but then instead of taking English, I'm going to take the replacement course of Language 7. And that is mirrored in our 8th grade programming as well.
So just real quick with that, I mean, the big idea there is to keep our students in their core class as much as possible. So we know they need intensive supports, but they need that exposure to grade level content as well, and that's the concept of Core Plus, which is happening now.
Good evening, everyone. World language, there's a few changes through our in-depth program review over the last year. We made some big changes here at the middle school. I think some really nice positive changes. Currently, much like Eden Hall, there's a rotation. Students are when they're in 7th grade, they take PE one day, and opposite of that, they take German, French, Spanish, or cultural fusion for around 22 days. That's the same similar experience they have at Eden Hall through their rotation. What we're changing to for next year is to have, they're going to select their languages when they come in. And so instead of having just 20-some days of instruction, we're going to move to selecting German, French, and or Spanish. And that would really increase the, I think, do a really nice job for going into language 1 in 8th grade. And we're going to get a lot more depth and be able to take it much further than we have before. So I think that's a really nice, solid change for us, and you should see, hopefully, at the high school, some better AP scores as we have better background.
Just before you leave that, Dave, real
Yes.
quick, go back.
And just to clarify, the scores are excellent. It's just the number of kids in the AP level.
Well, yeah, higher and even improved. Hey.
But this is a great example of the ripple effect, we call it, whenever we make recommendations. So the impact on this recommendation was felt at Eden Hall. So modifications to the Eden Hall World Language program happened this year. So they're now having, similar to what Dave showed there with the current 7th grade program. So those current 6th graders will be selecting their world language course going into 7th grade. So the feedback we heard from both our research and from our community is try to get the kids started in their language as soon as possible. So this gets them a lot more time in 7th grade, and then they're well into the language in 8th grade. So again, a step ahead is what this does, but it does ripple back, as you can see, into Eden Hall as well.
At the middle school, we have academic support period, and we have our MTSS program. A lot of that program for additional supports happens during academic support time. We also do obviously support kids through regular tiers within the regular classroom. But I want to explain academic support. You see a lot of circles and a lot of lines on this slide here, because there's a lot of things that happen during this time. So about a little over 50% of our students take band, orchestra, and chorus during our academic support time. So our students are mainly in those courses. Those students who do not take band, orchestra, or chorus take academic support. Along with that academic support time, we have a lot of programming happening there for executive functionings. Our GATE students go at least one period a week. We have Tier 3 Wilson interventions that are occurring at that time. We have homework and study groups happening, a Check and Connect program that we implemented a few years ago happening. Obviously, our students can go to the library and get any resources that they need there. And through our data team meetings, our ELA math and science teachers are also offering reinforcement groups, reinforcement, reteaching for students who may need it, and we do have some gifted type of opportunities for some of our students as well at that time. So it's a very busy time. If you come to the middle school periods 1 and 2, you will see a lot of kids in the hallway moving and getting to a wide variety of spaces. When I saw the ROTC slide with the numbers, I was excited to hear and listen about potential using that time for academic support to engage some of our middle school students, because I know when they come over and to the middle school, they did a lot of nice activities this year within all of our PE classes, and I heard a lot of excitement about the program. So could be a great opportunity that we're just considering at this time. So those are the things that are happening during academic support. We've had some challenges in that area with getting students who need additional supports from band, orchestra, and chorus, because half of our students are there. Our teams are, through our MTSS program, I believe, are doing a really nice job communicating with our band, orchestra, and chorus teachers, and they are communicating when they need additional help and support, and we're able to pull our students better than we have before because we're communicating those needs to those teachers. And so we do have some groups that are getting extra support. So if they're in band full-time and they need maybe 3 or 4 extra weeks of let's say vocabulary development, our teachers will reteach some of those skills during our academic support time. And so we've struggled there before because of just the communication and organizing that. There's a lot of work that goes into looking at all the data, but this school year I think we've done a nice job getting that information to our teachers for our band, and they've been very supportive of this. Career education, you heard a little bit about this through Navion's program that is at the high school. It begins in the middle school, 7th grade program, and I've presented on this a couple of times before, but they get the career clusters. There's 16 career clusters that students take a survey and they start to learn about what careers and the matches, and if students can find where they have a passion, the career interest, it would be great. So we're trying to match them up, get them ready for upcoming courses. We do some Hall and Code work also, and I'll show you an image of what that looks like here on careers. Those are the 6 types that they look at. They give you all this information, and then our students do some research into those careers just to learn about what careers are possible. So I think those things are very, very good programming part. The part that I get probably most excited about is we have a strong career day. We're very fortunate to be in a school district that has a variety of people that can come in and give great presentations to our students. Oftentimes students choose careers where they know someone or their parents are a part of, and giving them the opportunity to see other people in those careers really pique a lot of interest. And so our guidance counselors work very hard to collect these artifacts, and we've had 2 career days this year that were outstanding. And then a few 8th and 9th grade activities.
Okay, so this slide focuses on the transition from 8th to 9th grade and some of the activities that the high school and middle school administration have planned. We know that it's a very exciting time for the 8th graders to be heading to 9th grade, but it also can be a very nerve-wracking time. So these are just some touch points along the way to help those students start to connect with the high school administration, maybe the guidance counselors, meet some students as well. So on January 24th, that'll be our first official touch point. Our 8th graders will be coming over to the high school. They'll be walking over, and they'll be sitting in the auditorium, and they will review the program of studies with the high school administrative team. So you can see pictures there. So it'll be almost like a formal presentation, to my understanding. And it'll be great because those students will also get to experience what it feels like to be in the high school during an actual school day. And then on February 8th, the second touch point will be the high school students coming to the middle school. So we have the peer-to-peer group as well as the high school's principal advisory group coming over with the high school team, joining 8th grade classrooms and providing time for the 8th grade students to ask the high school students any questions and provide them with any answers that they can.
Okay, I think that is the last slide. Any comments or questions for the middle school team? Our goal was 30 minutes. Obviously, we didn't reach that goal. But there's a lot of really awesome things happening. I hope you see and appreciate that, the work that goes into preparing this, the thought that goes into making recommendations for our kids and families. Thank you all.
There were a
Yeah,
lot
one
of good
question.
slides, a lot of good information on there, so thank you. It was enlightening.
I'm sorry. I did have one question. Just to clarify, because I was also a Spanish major, so these are my areas of curiosity. So it sounded to me, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounded to me like you're doing more of an exploratory at Eden Hall. Is that correct? So when they get to 7th grade, they're not going to do the exploratory program? Or was that, I was confused about
They're
the
doing
90
the
days.
exploratory strictly in 6th grade now, so we have it set up so that in quarters 1, 2, and 3, they'll get the 3 languages that are
At
the
Eden
choice.
Hall.
Yes,
Oh,
at
that's
Eden
great.
Hall, and then when they schedule, the scheduling timeline for middle school is a little faster than
Yeah.
the elementary, but they'll be able to select. And then in the 4th quarter, there's a different like language learning based class where it's talking about more overarching concepts of language. So yeah, they're doing that now in grade 6,
great.
and then that way when they go into 7th grade next year, they get a jump start on that year 1.
And
That's
that
great.
does not lock them in to
Yeah,
that
that's the
language.
question, right.
You know, they can get into 7th grade and experience French and perhaps think, well, 8th grade I want to move into, and that's okay. That'll be an option too.
So it'd be like a level 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
The only other connect the dots is in April, the board will hear a HR presentation around staffing. All of those right student, right course requests lead directly into how do we staff, how many sections do we need of which course. And so being as accurate as possible through that scheduling window leads to a much better schedule, much more balance around class sizes as we move into the school year.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much. Nice job.
Item 2.02 is also an information item, and this is regarding the English Language Arts Core Text Evaluation. So I will also hand this one over.
Yeah, I'll kick this off as well. So we're excited about tonight, and this has been quite a process to get to this point in making this recommendation. We started back in February of 2022 in developing the evaluation process for core text. Again, core text are those texts that are firmly embedded into our curriculum that most students will interact with their teachers over the course of that particular course of studies. What we learned through 9th grade, if you recall last year, we made recommendations for grades 5 and 8 core text. We paused for 9th grade because the committee was not satisfied with the text that they had at that time. And at that same time, we made some adjustments to the process in order to get even more input from our ELA staff and our librarians collaborating together on identifying those texts that they wanted to go deeper into review. So that was shared numerous times. We've talked about this process. And then in July of this past July, we had narrowed down to our top 4 texts, and we shared that out with our board and community at that time. Over the course of time, then, our committee evaluated those 4 and narrowed it down to the top 3. And the top 3 were shared with the board and community in November. And then that was an opportunity to hear from our students and hear from our community members and parents in terms of what they thought about these texts. That student opportunity really started at the beginning of the school year, and we kicked off the parent opportunity for the most part in November. This slide gives you a little bit of student input. So we value hearing kids' voices. We only had 12 students take us up on this opportunity. Now that was to read the entire text and then provide feedback on it. It was heavily promoted at the high school to encourage students to participate, but we understand, that's quite an ask on top of everything else that they have going on. So we're going to continue to look at ways to engage our students in this because their voice obviously matters. They'll be the ones that are engaging with this in the classroom. Really excited about our community input. So this was when I downloaded this when this presentation was finalized. We continued to have a couple people submit some of their thoughts and ideas. So you see the number 44, that's in the low 50s right now in terms of, that is more than I've ever seen in terms of our community engaging in a process which we're super excited about. And I can tell you that the committee reviewed every one of those pieces of input from our community members, and we value that too in making that final recommendation. One of the books was probably the lead going into this phase of the process, and that was not the one that was our final recommendation. I can say that the student community input had some impact, thank you, on making that final recommendation. So that's where we are. I'm going to turn it over to the teachers to share the recommendation, but before I do that, I just want to share some things that we always talk about with our resources when we go through an evaluation. This is true for textbooks as well. We always start with the textbook, in this case the core text, is not the curriculum. They are resources to support the learning goals for our kids. We also say that you will never find the perfect resource. We've looked at so many different textbooks over the years. I always say it's like buying a home. This is the perfect home, but it's a lousy location. It's a perfect location, but the home needs a lot of work. I mean, that's what happens with resources. That's why we have professionally certified teachers to take them and make them work within the classroom. So that's the reality here as well. We heard from community members, some of the resources they loved, some not as much. We heard from our committee, some they loved, some things that they'd like to tweak or change or modify, and that's, I don't think, ever going to change. But we feel like we came to a solid recommendation that aligns to the things that we've been talking about with our evaluation process, and that's what our teachers are going to talk about.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Mitchell, and I've spoken to some of you over the years about this one book that we are presenting to you tonight. I am the department chair of English, and I also teach AP English and Language Arts 9 and 10. I had Derek come with me tonight, so you didn't have to listen to just me. This is Derek Majors. He is an amazing 9th grade English teacher that we hired this year, and he jumped right into our committee because he is interested in this book. He has done tons of research, read all of the books in the short time we gave him, and was a great member of the committee. So Derek is going to start you out.
All right. So as a committee and as the best two-looking members of the committee, we're here tonight to recommend Angel of Greenwood by Randy Pink to be added as our core text to the 9th grade curriculum. We feel that from an instructional standpoint, as educators, we believe that this novel allows us to fill those identified gaps that our committee was looking for at the beginning. Some of those gaps that we were looking at were how to analyze a theme that develops throughout a text, ways in which complex characters interact and advance the plot, and then I believe most especially how point of view impacts the meaning of a text. This text is very different from our other core texts that are in the 9th grade English curriculum in that there are 2 point of views. So you're able to see the story told from 2 different point of views, 2 characters who have vastly different backgrounds that are coming together to give this one narrative. We also believe that this text is amazing because it allows us to also connect with 2 of our other core texts, one of which being the classic To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, the other being Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. So we believe that this text, this resource, will be a great complement to those other 2 and allow us to create intertextual connections as well in our curriculum. Next, we realized that, especially in high school, we are teaching to a wide variety of learners. So we have 3 different courses that are offered to our 9th grade English students. First, being our language arts students, we believe that this text will allow them to engage with relatable characters as well as with the quick moving plot. With my students in English 9, we believe that they're able to dig deeper into those literary elements that they're going to notice on the Keystone exam at the end of the year. Finally, with our other students in our honors level courses, we believe that this text will allow them to explore the various themes as well as to look into philosophical questions that arise throughout this text.
In addition to teaching the actual novel, we'd like to move beyond that as well. So this text provides so many opportunities for us to do that. The first way is through nonfiction text. We can add in so many different pieces of nonfiction, and that is important in an English 9 class because it is covered on the Keystone exam for our course. The other aspect of going beyond that we are so excited about is that we can collaborate with the social studies department. You saw program of studies changes that were made this year. So our 9th grade students learn United States history in our school, and we think that this book can provide us such a link between our departments, and we're really excited about that. So.
Yep.
This is what you've all been waiting for, I think. This is the text that we are talking about removing. Now, the Odyssey by Homer is a classic, and it is still available in our 9th grade textbook. We think that by removing that as a core text recommendation and keeping it as something that teachers can supplement with or bring in if their students are interested in something like that, is really where we want to go with this. So we're keeping the rest of them and allowing teachers to continue teaching the Odyssey if that works for them. So.
We talked about this a little bit, I think, through the evaluation process, that all of our core text is not necessarily cover to cover. They're texts that are integrated in the curriculum that support those specific standards or learning goals, and excerpts perhaps paired with other text, using other resources like they mentioned with fiction and nonfiction to support that experience for our kids. That's how we see these integrated together. Okay, we'll pause. That's the end of that presentation. We'll pause there for any questions or comments.
Yeah, no, go ahead. For the current core text that we have, the 5, are teachers currently reading all 5 of those books with their students throughout the year, or are they picking and choosing certain books?
Some of those go with the honors class. So A Separate Peace and A Tale of Two Cities are both in honors. Everyone from language arts to English 9 to honors 9 read Romeo and Juliet, and we have read To Kill a Mockingbird, and I mean, in all of the classes as well.
So with The Angel of Greenwood, would that be read then by all classes, including honors? Okay.
Can I piggyback on that question before you ask
No,
yours?
go ahead.
Yeah, we'll just go around.
Yeah.
Is the Odyssey then currently, how is that being read? You say some classes read A Separate Piece while others don't, but everyone reads some texts. How is that one currently utilized?
I'm going to be really honest with you. I'm the only one who does it.
And what do
I'm
you
in language
teach?
arts. Language arts 9.
9?
Yeah.
So all the
It's
9
an engaging text for them. Yeah.
What's that?
It's an engaging text for them.
So language arts 9 is everyone?
No, that's one of the 3 pathways for 9th grade. You can
Okay.
take language arts, academic 9, or honors 9.
Okay, so this is academic?
That's language arts would be the lower pathway.
The students who need some more support.
That's interesting.
Like 5 students. It's only like 5 students.
That's one. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So the students that need more support are reading the Odyssey.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
I just want to comment. I read Angel of Greenwood. I enjoyed the book. I thought it was a good book. I will be honest, I think it's kind of like a great book for summer reading, or, maybe used as a piece, or it could be, I liked in here where it talked about integrating it a little bit with social studies, but to me, a core text recommendation, a book that students are reading with their teacher, with their class, like dissecting it together, going through it together, I feel like it needs to be a higher level, a stronger academic book than that. I looked up the Lexile levels of both of these books, and Odyssey, that came all over the place, but it was like in the 1100s and 1200s, where Angel of Greenwood was in the 700s. So, that would be my concern with that book. Like I said, I think it's a really good book. I think it has a lot of really good things in it. I think it's, doesn't need the teacher support for most kids.
That's something we talked about in our committee as well. It was a concern, especially with our honors teachers. They want to make sure that we're challenging and providing rigorous texts for our students. So with Angel, it's so accessible for everyone, and that's what we liked about it. So the students who need so much support can read it and have conversations with their friends who are also reading it. But with an honors class, you bring in the philosophy. There are two activists and philosophers who are featured in this book. So you can talk about that. You can bring in the nonfiction. There's so much more you can add to it, and that's the perspective that we were looking at. Instead of starting at the top where not everyone can even get to, start here so we can pull people up.
No, you're fine. No, keep going.
My question, if I can get this to work, is why is it so important that this is the book that every single ninth grader is going to read? Whereas, as you mentioned, some of these books up here, like, this one's in language arts, some teachers do that, it just seems like this is going into a different, realm than the other books.
I'd say all of these core texts are embedded into our curriculum. And again, it's back to how do you use the text to support the standards and the learning goals that you're teaching. I don't think it means that we have to teach any of them cover to cover. It's an opportunity to integrate them, and the text is the starting point. It may be one that it makes sense to read cover to cover depending on what they're working on, or just sections of it and they expand from there. So they will all be integrated into the curriculum. The classics, in addition to Angel, would be, and then teachers have that flexibility based upon the needs of the students in their class.
How long have these 5 been on your curriculum?
Well, I came here in 2008, and they've been here since I have.
Okay, that's good. So no
I
other.
don't know.
So every one of these would be considered a classic. True.
I would say so.
Yeah, and so that's what you've been teaching is a classic material.
Well, To Kill a Mockingbird is more of a modern, contemporary classic.
1960.
Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah. To Kill a Mockingbird was published in 1960, so that would be the most
1960.
modern text that we have in our
That's
curriculum
like
currently.
60 something years ago, right?
1960.
19, yeah, but about 60 years ago or more.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and again, as we
Long
talked
time.
about the evaluation process, is we were looking for some more contemporary text. We were considering things like student interest. We were considering diversity of character, genre. I mean, all those things what we've been talking about in terms of this evaluation process. So a copyright of 2021 compared to some of these texts that were 1800s, we feel like there's value in bringing some of that diversity for our kids as well, and the different perspectives that we talked about, which is valuable.
And with something a little bit more modern, we can also bring in a contemporary voice that students are a little bit more engaged with as well. Students or characters that are the students' age as well, something that they can relate to throughout these texts.
The literary devices, the characterization, the nonfiction are also areas, I think the last time we were together, we talked that are historically underperforming for us, not compared to the state, but when we look at areas in our Keystone exam, we're performing the lowest. We felt that this novel provided some support with that as well. So it kind of fills a gap in that manner as well. Oh,
You don't have to repeat yourself.
Next time.
Share more.
yep.
My question, when you talk about engagement, and I realize you have a small sampling of the students who read it, was only 12. None of them picked this book. I mean, obviously, they're picking by, looking at a cover or reading the back of the book. So, I mean, what makes you think that this is going to be engaging for students?
Well, it's
Let me ask you, so one of the things I'll say is, we have our certified teachers who spend every moment working with that age level of student. And so as they have examined a number of core texts to get to this point, they understand what is meaningful to students in the classroom, and I know that's a part of their perspective. I mentioned, and again, not for tonight, but at a prior meeting, all 3, I'm sure many of the board took advantage of reading all 3 of these. They're all excellent. So whether they fit in where they fit, I hope they fit somewhere, because all 3 finalists, I think, are opportunity for teachers to work with students to engage them in literature. That's what we want to see.
And just one more reminder, the 2 teachers as part of our committee that were kind enough to come out tonight and share, We had gate teacher involved, librarians, other teachers that have been, working with kids for quite some time as well. So, that made up the committee. I've shared the executive summary with the board so you can see all the members of the committee in making this recommendation. So seeing the value in challenging kids at the level of gate students, our gate teacher was involved in that and saw the value with this text as well. So we're thinking about all levels of learners, all kids, to engage with this text in some way, and then bringing that meaningful experience with the certified teacher we think has real potential.
Does anyone, I don't want to jump in again.
Go ahead.
One of my concerns, and I also have read 2.5, I'm still working on the third book, but yeah, they're great reads, and I have enjoyed reading all of them, and I'm glad I have read all of them, even though not all of them made it this far. My biggest concern, especially with the Odyssey, I think the Odyssey was just like, I think the BBC picked it as like, in a survey of knowledgeable people, not just the man on the street, as the most important book of all time. And in my humble opinion, it has been, in my entire academic career, the most important book that I have read of all time. It has come up multiple times in pop culture references. We have, to this day, so to discount it as being an ancient text, it's still very relevant today. And I think even in Angel of Greenwood, they don't reference the Odyssey, but because they're referencing Romeo and Juliet, to me that's just another case, is that these texts continue to pop up time and again in life. And my concern is that we, in addition to teaching the skills to evaluate these texts, it's also important to have students leave here knowing the things that they need to know to be productive human beings. And this is one of those things that I feel like, knowing the Odyssey, and this may be their only opportunity to read it, and I'm disappointed that only your class is reading it, and a bit surprised that that's the only class reading it, that my heart feels like this needs to be read because this is something that students need to know. So my concerns aren't about the text itself, it's a great book, but what are we leaving behind by taking this away from our students?
I'd say that's the beauty of literature, that you could probably go around the room and someone said, well, this book has to be in our curriculum. The reality is the Odyssey is available as a resource within our current textbooks. That was board approved as well. Within that collection of text that's in our textbook, there are a ton of other choices. Now, they may not be, again, cover to cover, but there's opportunities to expose the kids to a bunch of different opportunities or different text, and then they take it from there. If they want to go deeper, they do. If they don't, then that's the challenge of this, is where do you, there's only 180 days that we have to work with kids, and what are those choices that we make in terms of the resources that we put in front of them? That's...
And you're talking about the anthology. When he says textbook, the anthology, short stories, poems, they're not all full-length novels.
And even then, we're not guaranteed, though, that the teacher will choose, is what I'm hearing.
No, in that anthology, there are a ton of different choices. They're looking based upon the students that they're working with, and again, based on what the skills that they're trying to develop with the students, what's the most appropriate text to work with the students. That is a decision that teachers are making.
So we then, based on what I'm hearing, a student could leave without reading a single line of the Odyssey.
Yes.
There are so many good books. They're going to leave without reading so many of the good books.
Yeah, but few are number one on the all-time list
I
of human history.
I can say, as a certified English teacher, I did not read the Odyssey in high school. So I had to wait until I read it in college. Yeah. It's disappointing, but...
Yes, but I think a lot has changed in the way colleges are approaching, and I think there could have been a reasonable expectation 10, 20 years ago that a student moving on to higher education, that they would encounter some of these great classics even if they hadn't encountered it in high school. And so, but I don't think that's the way colleges are approaching teaching our children. And I do believe that this may be, for many of our students, the only opportunity to read the Odyssey. I mean, I have my daughter who likes to come and watch me sometimes because she doesn't get enough of me at home. The only time, I mean, she's about to finish graduate school. The only time she read this book was here at Pine-Richland. I don't think you realize, and I certainly didn't, how important that book is when you're reading it, but then you encounter it time and time again, and then it's like, or you might say something that references back to a great book. And that's my concern, is that if we remove, especially the Odyssey, that we're not equipping our students, and again, I'm disappointed it's only in the one class, equipping our students with the things that they need to know when they leave here.
I would say, so just from a personal opinion perspective, that when you look at Shakespeare versus the Odyssey, maybe we keep Shakespeare just as an English person and an English teacher. That would be probably my preference. And I think that's why with so, like Dr. P said, 180 days with kids, that's what we choose instead of the Odyssey. And so that's probably something to think about, but.
Yeah, I just have a hard time removing any of those books off the list, but I'm confused now because I thought they were core texts and everybody was reading them, so I have to really reevaluate how I was thinking about this whole thing. I do, like I said, I think this is a great book. I think it has a great place. I get all of the things that you're saying, all the different ways that you can use it in all different, aspects of the school. I do say I struggle with on this page about, making sure the book is accessible to everybody and instructionally. I feel like there's a place for those books, but books that are read as a class with teachers, with discussion, they don't always have to be accessible. That's your time to read books that are, like I said, when I read the Odyssey, and even when I read the Iliad, which I talked about earlier today with Christina, when I was in the 6th grade, I read it with my class. I made a book about it. I still have the book. It was an important thing in my life, so.
So again, just to be clear, core text and board-approved textbooks have gone through some evaluation process, and they're integrated into our curriculum. There is still, the teacher is making some level of recommendation on which of those resources to use to support the learning goals. So we don't read cover to cover those books, and that in some cases we do. Same thing with our anthology, our textbook, that those resources are there, and they have those options to make some of those selections based upon their kids and whatnot that we've talked about.
I'll echo what Mrs. Turchek and Mrs. Brusalis have been saying. I remember reading the Odyssey in high school, and I would never in a million years have picked to do it. I probably wouldn't go to the library and pick it out now. It's a tough read, but it has so much value, and I'm glad that I read it. And just looking at your 44 responses, your highest percentage was for I Must Betray You. And that is what I've been hearing from the community. Those are the recommendations that I'm hearing from community members, and I'm here to represent them. So that would be the one that I would vote for. And I know that's really disappointing. I love your enthusiasm, and you guys, I can see you are so passionate about English. My daughter's in 9th grade. Maybe you have her. No, I don't think you have her, but she's just been struggling through Romeo and Juliet. So I'm just really excited to see you guys as so enthusiastic and putting so much effort into this. So thank you, and it is noted.
Just a point of clarification. Those percentages are how many people read each of those different books. It doesn't indicate like that this is our #1 favorite or whatnot. So we had 43% read I Must Betray You, 34% Angel, and 22% read that. That's not an indication of their preference. No problem.
Could I make one more comment about that? And not about that in particular, but we also liked I Must Betray You. And we feel like as we continue to do this with 10th grade and 11th grade and 12th grade, there are more opportunities for I Must Betray You where it may fit better, and it could possibly, you might see it again.
Okay, thank you, and thank you guys very much for coming out.
Thank you. Okay, Christina, done? Okay, strategic, item 3.01, strategic plan. Plan update. Anything?
This is for the board to discuss. So what we have talked about, I've put in my weekly updates for the board. In the strategic plan, every year has been a different section of the board policy manual. So if we look backwards, we've seen ourselves work through all of the different sections. The board knows, the community may know, we have about 250 policies across many different sections. This year, the section is the 300s, that's employees. And so we have had a historical way of going through that, but we do not want to presume the board, the currently seated board, wants to follow that process. Policy is one of the greatest actions of board, and so this item is here for the board to discuss. How do you want to tackle the revisions to the 300s?
Okay, the revisions come from?
The revisions come from all over the place. We are part of the PNN, the Policy News Network, so when there are legal changes or school code changes that might impact a particular policy, then we would get that update through subscribing to that service. That doesn't mean all things that are recommended through PSBA need to be added,
Okay.
and historically they have not been added, but we get those suggestions. But the board can look at policy as well. In every policy, you see a series of citations. There's integration with other board policies. There's also citations and hyperlinks directly to the school code or some other regulatory body. And so, again, the question in front of the board is, how do you want to work through that?
Okay, so just educate me on the process. So I heard you receive information from the, PSBA, and you call that what? All these acronyms. I should know the acronyms. I'm an IT, right?
Yeah,
PNN.
so I put a pretty detailed step-by-step in one of my updates. So when we, number one, I would say this is an internal benchmark. No one says that Pine-Richland School District must revise policy within a 5-year window. That has been a local decision. That is something that our board has been committed to, because there was a time when half of our board policy manual had not been reviewed for about
Right.
20 years. So what happens now is Mrs. Williams, as board secretary, takes any recommended changes or adjustments in a particular section. She will create a draft that includes that as bold language. Then the senior leadership team, particularly those, like in this case, Brian Glickman would have a key role. We sit down and we look at it, and we look at, does it make sense? Well, how does
Got
it
it.
connect to everything else? Do we have any recommended changes here on the ground based on how things operate? From time to time, some of the policies are taken to GRB for legal review, depending on whatever it is. Then we share that with the board through an update. Then it comes in front of the board for sometimes a joint governance meeting, sometimes just as an information item. They're typically included in what we call a batch, so it's all of them.
Okay.
People can pull, so board members can pull from a batch. So if a particular policy, a member of the board, and it just takes one, wants to pull it aside for additional conversation, the board has done that. Sometimes they get pulled, discussed, and put right back into the batch. Sometimes they require additional work, and we schedule additional meetings. So,
Okay, so it's a linear process that comes through, and at the end of the process, the board hears about the changes and understands, and you have a conversation with the leadership team, or how it's presented, right? So,
Well, I think, like what we've done in the past, like if you're looking at there's 44 policies and 5 administration and I think the way we've done it before has been good. Like they get a review, we get a whole batch of them, some have changes, and then we kind of can go through them and say like, hey, pull this one, pull that one. And then since this is a big batch, maybe it makes sense to break it into smaller chunks and do like 15 at a time or something like that, and we just review them. Some that are fine, we just leave them. Anything that we want to change, we have to vote on it, it has to review it 3 times. And sometimes, like, we have gotten bogged down on language a little bit on things like that. I personally feel like the way we've been doing it like that is fine. I don't know how Christina or Lisa or Mark feels about it.
I think the way we're doing it is fine. I think it was a good idea when we came on board that we were extended the invitation initially of, I think we were each assigned a batch, and we were able to sit in with you through part of the process at least. So if that invitation is extended to new board members, I think that would be helpful. Also, as far as the information that we get from PSBA, the PNN, is that something that could be forwarded to board members just to look at? Because in looking at what Barb provided us, there's more detail in there that I think is interesting to read.
Definitely, it can be
Even
forwarded to
before
the
we make
board.
changes.
Yeah, it certainly could be forwarded. Now, the PNNs, when they come in, they're not focused on a particular section. So sometimes we sit on a PNN recommended update until we get to that batch. Otherwise, we would be talking about any number of policies across the manual all the time. It just gets really difficult to manage. And if it's not sort of mission critical, then we just wait on it. But when Mrs. Williams receives those, they can certainly be forwarded. Yeah, there's nothing.
And then as far as the ARs go, I think it would be a good idea if we review those as we are reviewing each batch. So if there's an AR attached to any of those policies, that we take a look at the AR as well.
Yeah, we can do that as well, and I would say when they come before the board as an information item, because that's what we can publicly bring those forward for information as well.
Okay.
But again, so I think, Mr. Morissette, what I didn't hear and wanted to hear from the board is, does the majority of the board want to continue the existing process? Or does the
Right.
board want to look at shifting that and taking greater sense of, I'll say, engagement earlier in the process? And that's a question for the board. We're comfortable moving forward either way. It's just wanted to make sure that we heard from the board.
Right, and I think you've heard, anybody else have any comments at all? Ashley, anything? Mark, you've been here before, you know the drill, so.
Well, I'll just say
Yeah, go
that,
ahead.
look, this is one of the big 3 responsibilities of the board, to review policy. And so this has been a way for us to intentionally do that periodically. Last time this batch was reviewed was June 2019. So it'll give all the new board members a chance to look at the 300s. I think chunking it is a good idea. I think it is a bit much to try to review 44 at one time. And I'm okay with just having any policy, and there's 10 of the 44 that have PNN revisions, right? So we're just talking about those 10 that Barb would synthesize for us. I'm okay with just getting her with her synthesis of it.
Yeah.
But that's just me. So so I would say same process, but maybe chunk it in the smaller pieces.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I
Good.
would, I agree.
Okay. Rest of you? All okay? That help? Yeah. You get your answer?
Yeah, it isn't about me, it is about the board.
Well,
So
you asked the question, so you're getting the answer.
The direction helps.
Right.
But what I would say is, my experience is, sometimes the engagement level isn't high early, and it doesn't become high until we get closer to a third read.
Till it comes
So
to
my
the end.
recommendation would be, nothing prevents reading the whole 300, at least skimming them early in the process, so that when we get there, whether it's in pieces or in parts, because my answer would be, there's 44 policies. If only 5 have some real meat for discussion, and most of them are unchanged, then there's no real problem with 44. If there's a lot of changes, then it's a little bit tougher to work through.
Good.
Yep.
Good, okay, thank you. We good there? Item 3.02. It's a public information. These are the governance and subject leads for committee participation as listed. Academic achievement, Ms. Christina Brusalis. Buildings and Grounds is Mr. Joe Cassidy. Finance, Mr. Mark Sandy. Operational Services, Mrs. Leslie Miller. Staff Services, Mr. Michael Weethorn. And Student Services, Mrs. Lisa Hillman. On the committees, Professional Development, Mrs. Brusalis, Mrs. Hillman, and Mrs. Turchek. School Culture and Diversity will be Mrs. Miller, Mr. Cassidy, Mrs. Brusalis, and Mrs. Hillman. Sustainability, Mrs. Fortier, Mr. Weethorn. Technology, Mrs. Fortier, Mrs. Miller, and Mr. Morissette. Negotiations, Mr. Cassidy, Mr. Morissette, Mrs. Turchek, and Mr. Weethorn. Okay. Moving on to action items. Item 4.01. This is the PREA, SPA, personal and athletic, non-athletic supplements. Motion to approve the PREA, SPA, personal, athletic, non-athletic supplements as attached.
Second.
Second. All right. I have a motion with a second. Any discussion? No. Okay. Do we have all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed? It passes. Motion passes. Okay. Item 4.02, Act 1 Resolution. It's an action item. Motion to approve the resolution pursuant to Section 311 D1 Special Section Act of 2000 certifying Pine-Richland School Board will not raise local taxes at a rate to exceed the school district's Act 1 index of 5.3% for the 2024-2025 general fund budget as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes. Yes.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item 4.03, Ski Club Field Trip. Motion to approve the student attendance and application of the Student Discipline Code for the Pine-Richland High School Ski Club to travel to Ellicottville, New York, Holiday Valley on Saturday, February 24, 2024, to participate in the ski club event as described on the attached field trip request form.
Second.
Got a motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. All opposed? Motion passes. Item 4.04, motion to approve the student attendance and application of the Student Discipline Code for JROTC students to travel to Dayton, Ohio from Friday, March 8, 2024 to Monday, March 11, 2024 to participate in a drill competition and tour of the Air Force Museum as described in the attached field trip request.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. All opposed? Motion passes. Item 4.05, motion to approve the attendance of Emily Dunker to attend the South by Southwest EDU in Austin, Texas from March 4th through March 7th, 2024.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. 4.06, motion to approve the staff attendance and application of Jean Woyland, Director of College and Career Counseling, to participate in counselor information sessions at Savannah College in Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, from February 27th to February 29th.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made now and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 4.07, motion to approve the resolution approving the service order agreement and E-rate letter of agency with Allegheny Intermediate Unit and Regional Wide Area Network Services and Internet Access Service as attached.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Finally, 4.08, motion to approve as first reading policy 719, use of unmanned aircraft drones as attached.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Okay.
I'm looking at the AR, it's page 3 and 4. It's consequences of noncompliance. There's not a lot of detail. It says local or federal law enforcement agencies may be involved. Do we have any more guidelines there? What may happen, what we're looking for, what the
We don't. I mean, typically, we leave that pretty general for students. It's, following the discipline code, and it's always case by case. So not knowing the scenario, it's tough to say. So we did make some notation of, if you're not following the policy as it's outlined, then we would be dealing with perhaps the discipline code or with police involvement or whatnot. So, it's tough to say with not knowing the specific situation.
And as far as the general public goes, coming onto school property, maybe on a weekend, how do we make them aware of this policy? Are we posting any, a sign about drone usage on district property, or how do we do that?
Typically, once the policy is approved, we'll put that especially this one, this is a new policy for us. So wanting to make sure that that's well communicated to our community and our staff and our students. We do that through our, e-blast communications. We do that through our website, so I would anticipate resources like that as well. We did not talk about signage for drones at this point. It was more of our typical communication styles.
Dr. Pasquinelli, if I heard you right on that first question, if this answers my questions, if a situation occurs or a policy is not followed, you use the disciplinary policy that you have, or it wasn't clear to me, what happens if something goes wrong?
Yeah,
so I think his answer is, it depends on how it went wrong and what did the person do. Right, so that's what you were getting at?
Right, yeah, it's a case-by-case scenario. So with a student involved, would be referencing the discipline code most likely, but depending on what happened, there could be police involvement. For someone that's from the community or an outside organization, first of all, there's an approval process. If they bypass the approval process, would be dealing with that. If they follow the approval process but then didn't follow the guidelines, so there's just so many cases.
Right,
it's tough to say.
Yeah, okay, all right.
And Mike, from what I could recall, that's a pretty common way for us to address a policy like this, right?
Sure.
There does seem to be a redundant sentence, so the last sentence under noncompliance on page 3 or 4.
Are you on the policy or the AR?
Oh, I'm on, what am I on? Oh, I'm on the AR.
Okay.
Yeah. That sentence is repeated in the next sentence.
Oh, yes, thank you. We can fix that. We're really trying to get the point across.
That's from our Department of Redundancy Department.
Yes, that's right.
Other questions? Okay, just a second.
We have to vote, right?
You good? Okay, all right. Make sure there's no other questions, okay. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, move on to item 5.
All right, so for finance, items 5.01 and 5.02 are staples of the of the finance portion of these meetings. So we will be at the next meeting being asked to approve financial reports, accounts payable, and some budget transfers. Item 5.03 is a annual exoneration of tax collectors so that any delinquent listings can go to Jordan for collection. Item 5.04 is just an informational item. It does not need a motion or board approval, but thresholds for competitive bidding have been raised slightly. They're redlined there. The new numbers are there in the public content. And then we have item 5.05 on February 12th, our next finance governance meeting at 6, and we'll be getting into the nitty-gritty of the budget for 24, 25, and then the capital funding plan.
Very good, thank you. Okay, I know Mr. Cassidy is not present. I'll take his item 6.01, reminder of Buildings and Grounds Governance Meeting, which will be scheduled for January 22nd, beginning at 6 p.m. to discuss upcoming topics such as the roof and the HVAC projects.
Yeah, if I could add,
Sure.
in November, we had a Buildings and Grounds meeting. If you did not have an opportunity to attend that evening or weren't yet on the board, that is a meeting worth watching the recorded session, because we're really at a fundamental place with HVAC where we're talking big bucks. And we're not going to have all the detail on January 22nd, but we do know we have 2 HVAC projects, one for Richland, one for Wexford. We know that they're going to probably cost between $7.5 and $8 million combined for those 2 projects. And they are a component of what would be in the 24-25 budget. So we need to, it would be ideal if we have the voices of the board, individual board members heard at that Buildings and Grounds meeting with either support or questions or whatever, but we're going to be in a place where we need to understand how to construct the 24-25 budget. These projects need to take place. We're in a strong financial position. So again, I would just say a refresh on the November Buildings and Grounds would be a great lead into what we're going to talk about on the 22nd.
Do you have a date for that November? Or I can find it.
November 13th, sound right?
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
sounds right.
All right, good. Thank
We
you.
only got one meeting in November. yes.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you. Okay, section 7.
7.01 is an information item. The Pine-Richland Music Department conducted its in-depth program review during the 2019-2020 school year. One of the recommendations to emerge was the creation of a summer performance program to help engage and retain students within the performance music pathways.
If you want Mrs. Hillman, I can help with that too.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead. I
yeah,
was gonna
so
turn it over to
our
you.
Eden Hall teachers have come together, and so although it is snowing outside, we are already thinking summer. So summer music programming, we want to get our advertisements hopefully out to the community shortly, because we're picking summer camps and all sorts of programming for kids when they are not in session here at school. But as one of the recommendations from the in-depth program review for music, we're trying to retain more students who are current 4th and 5th graders, which are the initial years of orchestral performance groups within our district, so that they're hopefully interested in gaining skills and there's no regression over the summer in terms of their level of performance. So we're looking to do that this year, July 8th through the 12th, and so it'll be a 1-week kind of camp that is sort of structured for morning time starting at 10 through lunch with the students, and there's a kind of a little sample schedule there. The teachers would be compensated at their hourly rates for approximately 2.5 days. We've kind of accounted for the setup and the tear down and the pickup of students and that sort of thing within. They're looking at getting t-shirts and having kind of a group buy-in and feel from that experience. So if anybody were experiencing financial hardship, we will advertise too that they can reach out to the district and let us know that as well, so that anyone who is interested would be able to participate. But that would be for all of our music performance groups.
Very good.
What's the estimated cost of the program?
We wanted to align it with the other participation activity fees that we have within the district, so that it was a relatively inexpensive experience for families, and really thinking through it being almost like a tutoring opportunity in a small group setting for those students. We were thinking through what would they pay for private lessons and so forth, and we landed on the regular activity fee in terms of participation for that.
$100.
Yeah, $100.
And what is the cost of the program to us? Is it cover that in that $100?
We believe it'll offset it. There will be some cost to us. We tried to, it's really going to depend on enrollment, how many staff members we need. So we're hoping to begin advertising that, collecting information of folks to see approximately what number of students, and we'll staff from there. So dependent upon which music group they're interested in, we will be able to offset slightly, but there will be some cost. However, we feel like that is a part of the in-depth program review in terms of keeping and attracting students within those pathways and helping them grow throughout the summer. So we're prepared and excited to do that, so long as we have interest.
Okay. All right, where are we at here? It's 7, okay. All right, section 8, Mike.
Item 801 is an information item for board consideration at the regular January meeting. A motion to approve the PREA, PRESPA personnel and athletic, non-athletic supplementals as attached. Item 8.02 is an information item for board consideration at the regular January meeting. A motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between Pine-Richland School District and the Pine-Richland Educational Support Professional Associations as attached. This agreement establishes a professional study leave of absence for employees whose positions are classified within the PRESPA bargaining unit to complete the student teaching component of a Pennsylvania approved teacher or educational special preparation program. Item 8.03 is an information item. The Pine-Richland School District strives to provide all students with academic, career planning, and personal and social support as they work through their K through 12 education. School counselors play a key role in this process, and they are available in each of our 6 buildings to partner with parents, staff, and community members to help every student eliminate barriers and his or her unique spark. We'll take a look.
Yeah,
go ahead, please.
And I would like to just update you. So really, our school counselors they play in a very important role looking at career. We talked about career planning today, academic, as well as personal and social support. So thinking school counselors play that key, they're one of the key roles in that process for all students. So we're really required to provide a K through 12 counseling advisory council as part of our school district in Pennsylvania. It's a comprehensive K through 12 plan. And members of that advisory council consist of business owners, they consist of college admission counselors, parents, as well as students, and people that have graduated already, and administrators, teachers. All of us come together and really work together to see what are we doing from a career planning standpoint, how are we best supporting our students in terms of like support through our counseling program, providing feedback and insight to goals and programs, advocating for the school counseling program, and really looking at how we can best support all of our students across the district. So previously, Dr. Meyer and Mrs. Turchek were 2 board members that helped participate in our school council, our school advisory council, and we are asking to see if there would be anybody else that would like to participate.
And if Mrs. Turchek would like to continue.
Yeah, I'd be happy to continue unless there's someone else that really would like
We
me
need
to do it.
approximately 2 people,
Oh,
if
okay.
possible, 2 board members.
I had emailed Phil
Yeah.
earlier with interest, so
Yes.
I'm very interested
Yeah,
in taking
absolutely.
on
Excellent.
with
Yes.
Amy, if able.
Yeah, I can do it.
Excellent.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Leslie or Lisa or Christina? No? Are we okay? Okay. All right. Thought maybe we had to have a vote here or something.
I don't think
It's
so,
okay.
as long as we're,
No.
as long as we're all, make it easy.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
worries. Okay, thank you. All done? Okay, we'll go move on to item 10, 10.01. It's the legal service updates for public discussion. First off, I just want to thank the RFP committee for tackling the finalization of the RFP. You all had to do this work during the holiday time, and the board really appreciates your effort and the result that came out of it. So as I understand it, we have an RFP. We're going to send it directly to firms, and we're also going to post it on the PR website, Pine-Richland website. So if any board member or Dr. Miller have a legal firm that they want to receive the RFP, you can submit the name and the addresses to both myself and to Mrs. Williams, because we're both the contacts for the RFP, right?
And if they have a contact at the law firm to whom we should send that?
Yes,
to,
in the
that would be
contact
great,
person, yeah, very good. So, I would say get that to me, on an email this evening, tomorrow morning at the latest. We want to move on this and get this all projected out ASAP. Okay. Any other discussions from anyone? Good effort by the team.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you. Item 10.02, student culture and diversity.
I'll take that real quick, if you don't mind.
Yep, go right
Again,
ahead.
this is just a welcome to Mrs. Miller and Mr. Cassidy for joining the Core Plus 4. We outlined our action items that the Core Plus 2 discussed earlier in the year. We shared those at the December board meeting. They're listed here. We won't go through those again tonight. But we do have a tentative date listed there. We just wanted to see from our Core Plus 4 team if that date would work for you, January 24th from 2 to 3? Yes. Good. Ms. Rosales?
I'm sorry. What date was that?
January 24th from 2 to 3.
Sorry. Is it in mine? 2 to 3? I cannot.
You cannot?
I cannot. I have a doctor's appointment.
Okay, so we'll, offline, we can talk about some
It's
other.
been on
we
the
have
books
to-
a long time.
We have to connect with Mr. Cassidy as well, so we'll talk and see if we can't find, because we do want everyone together, first time for us to be together as a full Core Plus 4. And again, our focus will be on those action items that are listed here on the agenda. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, item 10.03, reminder of the board workshop. A board workshop is scheduled for March 11th from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. This workshop will complete the onboarding requirements for the new elected board members. So just a reminder, okay. All right, moving on to item 11-01, any reports? No reports, nothing, okay. All right, let's move on to 11.02, recognition of visitors.
Sorry, I didn't get out to get the sign up, so did anybody sign up to speak at the end of the? Okay, let me just check to make sure nobody online. Nobody. Go ahead, Mr. Barber.
Boy, I need water.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Thank you, Dr. J. Thank you, Dr. P. Your leadership is always appreciated. I just wanted to reiterate my support for Angel of Greenwood. I think that it adds a lot of power to what the teachers can bring into the classroom. As Dr. P always says, they are certified teachers, professionals that understand how to utilize material to best educate our children. So I like to trust those individuals when they say that they're able to craft curriculum out of the text. And so finally, I just wanted to ask one question. I don't know what it takes for me to get a response from PR Kids First or any representation for PR Kids First. I sent an email, no responses from PR Kids First, have never received an email, a response from PR Kids First. It's not long. I'm gonna read it right now. Hopefully I get a response at some point. Dear board directors, I hope everyone enjoyed their holidays and didn't eat too much dessert. However, I did have 2 questions in regards to the previous school board meeting. As a regular attendee of the school board meetings, it struck me very odd that Dr. Miller was shifted to the side and Dr. Justice and Dr. Pasquinelli were removed from the head table altogether. I am interested in why the new board prioritized the seat shakeup, and have any board directors spoken to a firm about representing Pine-Richland instead of our current firm? Thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you. Enjoy the weekend. Don't understand why I didn't get any responses. I am interested because it feels like our educators were standing here telling you that they can craft education, quality curriculum, and there's pushback as if they can't create that quality curriculum out of a material that was defined as good. I understand there can't be Shakespeare-level allusions and metaphors and alliteration and all the key terms in every single novel, but there are themes in this book that are needed to be covered in our community, as evidenced by the racist homecoming proposal, and if you talk to our black families, the consistent facing of racism. Thank you.
Anyone else? Or is that it? That's it? Okay. All right, item 12.01, adjournment of meeting. We move to meeting adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Oh, is that right? Oh, okay, I thought I did. Okay, thank you. All right. Oh, good.